Boys, Mike Labella, Director of Instruction at Nemacolin Woodlands Resort in Farmington, PA, Penn State grad, Tri-State PGA Section Teacher of the Year this past year. So good friend of mine. And we're looking forward to this, Mike. So I'm not going to hold you up any longer.
Well, technical problems always happen, so it's expected. Well, Dan, I appreciate you having me speak with the team. I'm excited to talk to you about some of the mental game practices that we've been utilizing. You know, if you've been watching golf recently, you've seen Rory McIlroy, Alberg, they've all been talking about how impactful the mental game practices to the performance. So as we go through this, if there's at any point in time you have a question, you want to say something, just let me know, and we'll stop, we'll talk about it. Because I have about 35 slides here that we're just going to go through, talk about some ways we can integrate this into practice and put it into play, and how we can continue that after this conversation. So again, like Dan mentioned, my name is Michael Abella, Director of Instruction at Nemacolin. I've had some great learning experiences, and I like to think of myself as a well-rounded professional and not just a mental game coach, but I like to exercise all areas of the game. I'm thankful for the awards I've received. However, my personal experience through the mental game is what has driven me down this road of learning and getting young golfers like yourself more acquainted with it. We can deal with just frustration, loss of focus, poor shots, mental fatigue after multi-round events, especially playing with a team like you are. You're not only focused on yourself, you're also focused on, is our team doing well? Oh, I just lost a stroke, but I didn't just lose a stroke. Our team lost a stroke. So FlowCode is going to give us some tools to maintain some consistency over the course of rounds or multi-day events, and especially when you're playing in events outside of school. So last year we had Dr. Rick and Hallam join us for a FlowCode event. We had, for example, a team of 2 that played worst ball. Now you could tell right away that everyone at the start had different body language changes. Some of them were like, oh, dang, I have to play with someone I've never met, I've never played with before. I don't know their ability. So your perception starts to change based on the task at hand. And then that starts to become your reality. So our goal is to change that perception and put it into a positive spin on it. So when we're out there, maybe we're having a poor day, we can change our perception and get our intentions straightened out. So just some examples here of players that have gone through the program. We've had college players, amateur players, high-level handicaps, plus handicaps. And there's all different ways we can start to get our mind in the, we'll call it in the zone. So for example, here, Hunter says, as a college golfer, Mike and FlowCode helped me gain confidence in my game. And, you know, when I'm looking at confidence, I'm seeing a lot of different factors that go into it. And a lot of people say, how do I gain confidence? And I think some things that we can talk about today is how to gain that confidence without having to strike the ball perfectly, but if we can get our confidence and not strike the ball well, we can still score. Something that Nick put in here is my mental game and nerves have come such a long way. Mike has helped me over the winter. One thing about Nick that's really been beneficial is the way we went about this. So for example, Nick, really good baseball player, and in his routine, we started to use what we call a mental trigger. So his trigger is, imagine that he's on a baseball mound, throwing a ball towards the catcher, putting some spin on it. And then his cue, like a shot tracer, would be the color red. And he'd see this ball curving into the glove, and that would put him into a calmer state to be able to visualize the shot that he wanted to hit. And the great thing about Nick was he's had 3 rounds under par in the past month just because he's been using these mental triggers we've been working on. Nothing with the swing, which is great. Another one with Jack, going off to play college golf, has felt that it's helped to increase his confidence, but for him was understanding how to use the right triggers to gain that confidence. Nick, another soon-to-be college player, his scoring average has dropped, become more efficient, and be able to focus in tournaments. And for him, it was more about multi-day events, which was great. And I'm not going to go through this one. It's Weston. He's a high-level AM player. But a couple other examples I want to utilize. For example, a student of mine, Gary, you know, higher handicap player, but you know, imagine going on the course and striping on hole 1 and striping on hole 2, going par birdie. Then all of a sudden, the next 3 holes, you don't know what happened to your game. You're hitting the ball left, you're hitting the ball right. maybe not striking it as well. And for someone like him, I had to take him off the course and onto the range and understand how his triggers work. For his trigger was singing a blues song in his head, which got him into a calm state, and all of a sudden he starts striping the ball. So this guy goes from not being able to strike it at all to striping it by getting in a calm state. So later in this conversation, we'll talk about different ways the brain reads information, but I have this device that you put on. That's an EEG unit, and it measures on a scale of 0 to 100. 0 essentially means your brain is focused on a lot of stuff around you, and 100 means you're in the calm state, you're relaxed, you're in that zone or flow that we talk about. Well, Gary was at a 13, which is the lowest I've seen, and we got him to go from a 13 to a 95 by just sitting back here, understanding how to breathe properly, and his mind, his cues, that blues music, and he walks in, looks at his target, and hits the shot. So a lot of different ways we can start to get in the zone when we're starting to fall out of the zone. So this is, if anyone's watched Ted Lasso, this is something that we like to go by, be curious, not judgmental. So I want you to use this as you look at your golf game. Use it between shots, use it after poor shots. We can learn, we can grow, we can get better. Whether it's after a shot, after a round, or after a tournament, we can use this not to pick apart ourselves piece by piece, but to grow and learn and understand what happens when we're in different states, or maybe when we're a little tired. I have one student that has diabetes. For him, it's understanding what's going to happen when his blood sugar is high and low. So for you, it's just understanding your tendencies and understanding how we can grow and get better, and it's not always going to be a technical change. So some of our learning objectives for this would be understanding what is FlowCode, learn some of the principles, understanding what a proper pre-shot routine is, and understanding what exactly consistency is. So who from the group has had mental game training before? If so, what have you learned? Or is that?
Yeah, I maybe had a little bit with a former coach, but it really was just breathing. That's
Okay.
really about it. Yeah, it wasn't anything crazy.
And breathing is very helpful. There's a million different ways we can do it. Believe it or not, the average tour pro, how many breaths do you think he takes in a minute?
Yeah, a lot.
No idea.
No.
6. It's crazy.
6.
6
Crazy.
breaths in a minute. It's because the way they breathe in, the way they hold, they breathe out. And what they've seen in studies is that you can start to match your breathing with your heart rate to be more in rhythm, which actually gets you to be in a calmer state. So the higher your heart rate gets, the more the body becomes in this fight or flight scenario, which we'll get into. But we'll go into a little bit more detail a little bit later here. So just give you a little bit background on FlowCode. It was developed by Dr. Rick Sessinghaus, who's a mental game coach, Kyle Murakawa, works with many other tour pros. And he's developed this system, and it's been a consistent system for all the players he's been with and a lot of players that our coaches are with as well. So a flow experience, how does this influence our game? Well, it leads to an execution at the highest level. The principles of flow can be learned, and in fact, we have all experienced this at some time or another, whether it's on the golf course, maybe we play basketball, baseball, or other sports, where we're just having everything happen above our average. So maybe we're out there and we're 500 through the first 7 holes, and we're just feeling that we're going really well, everything's going your way, and you're relaxed in perfect rhythm, and you're very little aware of what's going on around you, and you're just enjoying it. Our goal is to get in this state more often and hopefully, again, shoot better scores. So what exactly is the flow state? Well, flow is defined as an optimal experience or being in the zone. It's when things feel effortless, we're at our best, and some key elements are having clear goals and a target of what you want, and most importantly, staying engaged in the moment. Too often do I see players getting disengaged after a poor shot, and they're so focused on that poor outcome that we're not learning from those mistakes. So it's a matter of just staying razor sharp focused. Our confidence is overwhelmed with certainty, and our body and mind are adapting effortlessly. So how do we become this flow golfer? Well, we need to desire the master of the game within ourselves. We have to be challenged by it, and it causes the top players to really fall in love with the game. A flow golfer can be described as someone who is driven by the love of the game and the challenge of a round and our desire to keep improving. So what is the mental game? Well, the mental game is a golf mind-body activity. The mind and body are working together. As I mentioned earlier, as our heart rate starts to rise, our body gets into this fight or flight state. So our goal is to be calm and collective, and we want to master some of these skills so we're able to help the body work more efficiently. So we want golfers to become closer and closer to this flow state or playing in the zone. And there's a lot of different ways we can do this. And we can see here on this graph, it says all mindset, creator mindset. Some of these different things, for example, an all mindset would be maybe you're coming down the Nemacolin and you're like, wow, this place is massive. I've never seen anything like this. Then you start to have this gratitude mindset where you're really thankful for playing golf for Coach Braun. You're like, I'm really thankful that I have the opportunity to play at IUP. And then you have this growth mindset where you're learning from each opportunity, each shot. This creator mindset where you really like to visualize maybe the trajectory or the curve, but there's a lot of different ways we can get our mind more into the shot and engage with the shot, because that's the most important thing. If we're engaged, we're more likely to hit a good shot versus when we're disengaged. So we got to understand how we're going to build this flow personality. So a couple of different ways we can create this is through focus, confidence, emotional management, practice, goals, our motivation. So our focus is our ability to be present in the moment. And there's a couple of different steps we'll go through in a little bit here so we can understand how can we focus on a specific shot. Confidence. Well, there's a lot of different ways we can build confidence. And a lot of people sit here and say, well, I don't understand how to build this confidence. We can start to look at our past results. So one thing I like to ask a lot of players is, what is the best shot that you've hit with every club in your bag? So for example, if I say, hey, my 8-iron, my best shot I've hit with my 8-iron, I'm up on the tee, I'm describing, and this actually happened in a golf school, I'm describing how to hit a shot into a back right pin location. I'm going through my pre-shot routine. I'm seeing the ball flight start 5 yards left, cut to the right. I want to see it land a foot from the hole and go. And I hit the shot, and I sit there. I'm like, oh, look, the ball is actually fading. Dropped the foot from the hole and went in. So I matched my shot with my intention. But now that's something I can call back. So that would be us anchoring a shot and then saying, okay, I'm anchoring this shot. I hit this ball in the hole. Every time I hit an 8-iron from that distance, I'm visualizing that same shot. So we can use our past results to start to build confidence, because you can stripe the ball in the range, you can play good golf, but how do we get that into a tournament setting in a multi-day event? It comes down to practice and preparation and your belief system. So one thing I say is if we believe it, that's our reality. If you believe that you're a terrible putter, well, you might not be a terrible putter, but if you keep saying it, you're going to putt poorly because that's your belief that you're a bad putter. So we have to understand how we're going to reframe it. A lot of things like posture and how we sit, a lot of that helps build confidence. You want to be able to see the shot and feel it before it happens. Emotional management, that's a big thing with a lot of different cues that we can work on. We can think of emotion as energy in motion. Our emotions at best, when we play our best, are going to be engaged, excited, calm, peaceful, and relaxed. In practice, as long as we have a specific plan and drill that help you achieve your goals, you're going to be starting off on the right foot versus just going out there and hitting balls. You want to have a specific plan in place each time you go out there. And then goals. Goals could be long-term, short-term, that specific round, or even in the moment. For example, if say, okay, I'm 105 yards out, pins back right, my goal is to get this into a specific location. So it could be just in the moment, or it could be with your game in general. And then our motivation. So a lot of motivation comes down to, what is your motivation to play the game? Why are you playing this game? So, for example, I want all of you to think about when you played your best golf. Write down your best experience, and then think about your worst experience. So I'm just going to ask each of you, what do you feel is going on when you play your best golf? Attitude, state, focus, and then think about when you played your worst. What's that like?
I feel like when I play my best, I'm not really thinking of anything at all.
And that's good. You know, if we're not thinking anything at all, you're in that flow state, everything's automatic.
I think probably when I'm playing my worst, I'm probably thinking of a lot of other things going on, either if it's like school or something random. You just can't really get it together because you're not playing well. So you're not really focused.
Okay. And that makes sense. You might even be focused on, oh, I hope my other teammates are playing well because I'm not playing well today, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm kind of going to go off John here a little bit on the opposite. Is when I'm playing my best, I feel like I'm a lot more focused.
Mm-hmm.
And just the exact opposite.
And is there anything that you feel helps you get focused?
I don't even know, to be honest.
Because that would be that next question. When you're at your best, what are you thinking, feeling, doing? Sometimes we're not aware, but sometimes after the round, if we're taking notes saying, wow, like for example, when I played my absolute best, I felt like I was very light on my feet. I felt relaxed. I almost felt like I was walking on a cloud. I felt like things moved slower. And when you start to recognize that, you can start to change your rhythm and then your cadence on the golf course. Like when you watch Tiger Woods walk on the course, it looks like he's just so relaxed. His chest is up, his head is back, but he's so relaxed as he's walking. There's a certain cadence to it versus when we're frustrated, we're moving a little bit quicker, our heart rate's up. So there's a lot of different things we can do to practice this, but it's really important if you go down and, you know, when you get back to your apartments tonight or dorms, write down, you know, what you're thinking, feeling, and doing when you're playing your best versus your worst, and we can start to separate these and learn from these experiences. So when we get out of focus or we know we're moving too fast, we can start to push things into the right direction. So this is an extremely important question I ask everybody as well. You know, why do you play golf? There's intrinsic reasons and extrinsic reasons. So intrinsically would be you're doing it for the love of the game. You like playing competitions. You like being with friends. You like being with a team. You like being in the environment. You just love the experience of playing golf. Extrinsically, we're playing for money. We're playing for trophies. You're doing things for other people. And I think the most successful players out there are the ones that are doing it for themselves, that love the game. And whenever we hear a player saying, I'm doing this because I was pushed into my parents, or I want to win trophies or win money, you start seeing the game and their performance slip. So I'm just going to use PGA versus Live right now. You see a lot of these guys going to Live and their games are slipping because they're getting all this money up front. The question is, do they love the game anymore, or do they go over there because they wanted this money? There's always going to be a debate about it, but when you see them go over there, you have seen some scores slipping. Obviously, there's guys like Bryson who absolutely love it. He wants to compete, and he's been playing really, really well. But then you get other guys who are slipping a little bit. So it's always think, why do I play this game? And if you feel like you don't know, try to do some searching. You know, what was fun about it when I first started? What was fun about it when I played in my first competition, my first team event? You know, why did we first start playing? So try to reconnect to a powerful reason for why you play. Create that excitement, create some new goals, and then we can start really going down a positive path for shooting better scores.
You know, Mike, I got to play with the Australian guy that does broadcasting on the Golf Channel.
Okay.
He played on tour. I forget his name now. That's what happens when you're 57. But I played with him at Oakmont, and we were having a discussion about the different personalities. And he retired from playing, and he's like, it just wasn't. I love to play, but I didn't love to compete anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you'd be surprised at how many people or guys are out there that are playing because they feel that they have to.
Yeah,
I mean,
I've heard of a few guys that are out there. I mean, guys that are playing well.
Yeah.
I'll pick on Keegan Bradley just because I know some people that have had conversations with him, and it didn't come directly from him, but it came from his parents. And he said his parents said that he just hated the travel, hated the commitment, hated, moving. Some guys love it. They got their families, they go with them. But and again, this was when he first started out. Who knows if his outlook has changed? But it is a lot of stress. You're going place to place, tournament to tournament. It is mentally hard on people.
Gary Christian, that's his name. That's who I was talking about. So he said like Steve Flesh, when he was playing, one time he hit a tee shot, and he said to Gary, I can't wait till I don't have to do this anymore. You know, he's on the downside of his career. He didn't want to do it, and his performance showed that. You know, Craig Perks was a guy that won the Players Championship, and he got a 10-year exemption.
Mm-hmm.
And he told Gary that I can't wait. He's like, I'm playing out my 10-year exemption and I'm done.
Yeah.
He went on to, he couldn't even go, and I think he went into broadcasting a little bit, but he doesn't even touch a club. So it just shows you how these guys that loved the game and got into it probably for a different reason, right?
And I'd say
Soured on it, and just it really affected their performance, and they really just couldn't stay out there anymore.
I agree with it. And even if I just use Tiger Woods as an example, right? He was a machine, and then you could tell he kind of fell out of love with it for a little bit. But most recently, you know, with Charlie really picking the game up, I think he's starting to fall in love with it again, but for a completely different reason. I think it's more he likes to be out there with him. He likes to see him grow. And with seeing Charlie grow, I think he's starting to kind of fall in love with the game again. And he's really taking a different personality on the course with his players, where you see them talking at the Masters and talking throughout the rounds. And that's something he never did before. So, you know, I think he's kind of rediscovering his love for the game in a different way now, where it was before, it was just being a machine, winning events, and his goal is just to win everything. So I think if we start to discover why we play the game, I think it'll make a big difference, especially when you start getting mentally fatigued from the game.
Agreed.
So I'm going to keep going here. We'll get to some more exciting stuff in a second. Just some optimal flow stuff. We want to enjoy it. We want to immerse ourselves in it. There's just some conditions that have to be met. I'm going to skip through this one here. So now, what can we learn from golf? You think of each moment in your life as like another shot. You can stay completely attentive to the present and get the most of it. The flow in golf is achieved through preparation, focus, and letting go. Living life by these 3 steps can bring more joy and less stress. So being your best emotionally on and off the golf course would serve no matter the situation. I like the part of, you know, letting go. In golf, I feel like we hang on to things and anchor poor shots all the time. We can think about, oh, I remember back in 8th grade, I shanked the shot, and it's in your mind whenever you have a 65-yard shot or something like that. We got to understand how to let go, because we're definitely better than those situations. So our goal here is to go from the fear to flow, our performance loop. So I'm going to pull up this real quick. So when all of you look at this image, what do you see? What do you feel? What are your thoughts on this? What are your words to describe the lake in front of you?
Pretty.
Seems very calm.
Mm-hmm.
Serene.
Nature.
What else?
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Who likes to fish?
I
Yeah, just pull up a chair, go fishing, right? Looks peaceful, relaxing, quiet. Now, if I go to this one, does that change your perception of what you see?
That's a golfing hole. Yeah,
it's terrifying.
Yeah, it does.
How deep is that one?
Right? So as soon as you see this, your perception changes, right? So I think before it was peaceful, relaxing, I could go fishing. Now it's like, oh, I'm faced with a shot. It's, 185 yards. You can't, I don't know if you can see it, if the screen's large enough. There is a pin tucked, I believe, back right behind the bunker. So what I want you to see is that our perception of something becomes the reality. If we perceive that lake is just relaxing, now all of a sudden there's a golf hole there, our perception is completely changing. Our emotions are changing. Our focus is changing. And one thing I want you to think about is, I don't think I do. So think about at Augusta when they have the practice round and they have the guys in the 16th on the par 3. And in the practice round, they're hitting shots and skipping the ball across the water. They're just having fun, right? There is no fear. They're trying to skip it across the water. Then we get into the tournament, and the guys are on that hole. The pin's in a certain spot. It's a little bit windy, and their perception completely changes because now they're faced with a task of the fear of maybe hitting a poor shot into the water or not landing in the right spot on the green. So we have to understand of how to change our perception with this and make it more exciting. Yes, there's water to the left. And if our brain attaches to the water on the left, your focus is going to be there. So one example I tell a lot of players is, okay, we got water left. You can acknowledge that water, but we have to have a specific intention of what we want to do here. If I'm thinking, don't go left, don't go left, don't go left, well, your brain is going to attach to, oh, left. And most likely you'll either hit a poor shot because you're fighting it, or you're just going to put it right in the water there. So with these emotions being triggered and shifted based on our perception, now our reality is going to change a little bit. So our goal here is to take that and reframe it. Take these fear statements and reframe them and say, okay, I'm excited to hit this shot. I'm not very good at hitting a cut. So me understanding my game, I'm probably going to aim this 5 yards left and hit a little draw to the middle of the green versus actually trying to attack that pin, and just understanding my game and where the miss is on that hole. So we have to understand how to reframe this, state our intention, and not be so focused on that water to the left. So I think some stuff that helps us is understanding our skill level and our challenge. So when a skill is perceived as too easy, for example, 80-yard shot in the middle of the green versus that back right pin, our brain starts to change a little bit in how it thinks about these shots. So let me ask, have any of you, and I'm assuming the answer is yes, had a really easy shot where it pins middle of the green, maybe you're somewhere between 60 and 120 yards, and you put the ball nowhere near the hole?
Yep.
Exactly. Now, this doesn't mean that you skip through routine, but this might be you getting out of the zone a little bit because the challenge of the shot is actually easier than your level of skill. Oh, pins in the middle, on middle of fairway. Should be an easy shot. So maybe instead of your routine changing, your level of focus or your engagement to that shot changes. So a really good example of a player that I have with his putting, he started perceiving as his putting, he was disengaging with it because he was seeing these putts under 7 feet just in his mind being easy, and then it turned into an unengagement with that shot. So he was missing all these putts, and he's like, okay, my putting just went from being good to really poor because he's being disengaged, thinking that his perception was really easy. So one thing I had him do is I actually had him take a ball marker and say, okay, now this is your new target. And I said, just putt to this. And he was rolling it over the ball marker every single time with good speed. So in his mind, and this is the opposite of what I tell a lot of players, I had him shrink the hole if he's putting. So for example, in his last tournament, he said it was his best putting tournament in a college event. And he's like, all I did was think of the hole shrinking when I was 10 feet and under. What this did for him is gave him a deeper focus and deeper engagement to the putt. And I mean, I guess it helps. Everyone's different, but you'd think shrinking that hole would make the task harder, but for him, it just made it a really, really deep focus. So we can take the challenge level and skill to now the challenge level is going up because we're shrinking the size of the hole, but we're trying to match out with the skill level on a shorter putt. So again, just an example, something to think about, saying, okay, how do I become more engaged with my target from 80 yards? Well, we have to still have a deep focus to that specific shot and having a clear intention of what we're trying to do. Let's see. Ooh. So we can think of our skill versus perception. All of you possess the skill on the team to hit a drive, 270 yards into a 40-yard wide grid. Think of it now, if we add that perception to the last hole of a tournament, you need to make a par on the last hole for your team to win the championship, right? Again, that's changing our perception. One thing I want to talk about with perception is if I talk to a lot of tour pros, they're not thinking of birdie, par, bogey. They're thinking of just strokes. I need a stroke. I lose a stroke, right? So they're not labeling these labeling these holes as birdies and pars and bogeys. So when we're challenged enough, it gets our attention to the present moment. And you have to have the idea of, do you believe you have the skills to match the challenge in front of you? If you don't, let's step out, reset our intention, and try to hit a shot that matches your game. So let's take a look at these two here. On the left, we have a player in the trees trying to hit a shot to the green. And then we have Tiger on the right, wedge shot, pin is dead center. There is a bunker there, but the pin's in the dead center, so you have plenty of room. So how many of you have been in a situation that we see on the left, which is not ideal, but have hit a really, really good shot and been like, oh, that is awesome. That is on the green. Right? And I've been there too. I've been in a college event where I'm in the trees. I'm like, I probably shouldn't hit this shot, but I'm going to hit this shot. And you hit it. I'm like, okay, that was worth it. And then going back to this 80-yard shot in the middle of the fairway, pretty standard wedge shot, pins in the middle, and we end up 30 feet from the hole. So again, this is our perception of difficulty of a shot versus, a difficult shot and an easy shot based on our skill level. So on the left, you're extremely engaged, you're super focused, you're creative, you're being playful with the shot, and you have a very, very clear intention of what you need to do. I need to hit the shot between those two trees. I have to have it cut around the trees, land short of the green, and release to the green. On the right, it's, I just have to hit a wedge shot to the pin. But when we're not as engaged with the shot, our intentions aren't as clear. We're not being very specific. We're pulling the club out. And we're kind of just going through the motion, right? So my goal is to get everyone to have clear intentions of what they're going to do, being able to execute those intentions and get that ball to essentially do what you want it to do without, again, being overly technical about it. So it's going through every shot, no matter what, having the same routine, same intensity, same focus as the left shot, but also on the right shot. So I just wanted to show this real quick. This thing's pretty neat. This is called the Focus Calm technology. I mentioned this in the beginning. This little thing here goes on up here, measures your brain waves. Like I mentioned earlier, for that one player, Gary, it measures from 0 to 100. And what we can really do is we can do some exercises. Even Coach Braun, if I walked you through that, you could get it for the team and really start putting him in some stressful situations on the course and say, okay, let's hit different shots. Let's see how you're playing. And what I like to do with my players is I'll put it on them, say, hey, just play 3-4 holes, and I'm just going to monitor this on my phone. And once you get to the fourth hole, we're going to talk about it, work on it, get to the next hole, and we can really see if we're able to, again, get some neurofeedback to, is my process consistent? Is my mental strategy consistent? Can I really get in the zone like that? Can I really get some, if I hit a poor shot, can I switch turn the switch on real fast versus kind of take a little longer to get back into a calmer state? Now, there's a little 3-step process. We can learn with it, we can practice with it, and we can use some challenge. So again, I have 2 of these. So if I really wanted to put one on each of you, I can have you go through a challenge and see who can go from an active state to a calm state really quickly, and use some flow triggers to that to allow you to execute the shot that you're trying to execute. So I'm assuming every one of you has a routine. Coach, does every player have a routine, or do some of them need some work?
Some of them need some work, but they're pretty good, actually.
That's what I'm hoping. You're playing college golf. We should have some type of routine. But here's the question. Do you do it before every single shot in your round? Do you do it purposefully before every single shot in your round? And the next question would be, when you hit a poor shot, are you able to get into that routine again, or do you end up rushing through that routine? That's extremely important, is making sure we don't rush through our routines and that we're able to execute a consistent routine after a poor shot. So this is just a little process I have a lot of people go through. I call it decide, commit, execute, and accept. So think of that decision as you're gathering your options for the shot. Then you're trying to make sense of that information. You're saying, okay, I'm going to hit a 100-yard shot. Let's go longer. Let's go 165. I have to hit a draw into the pin. I'm going to hit, a knockdown 8. I want you to be very specific. This is extremely important. If you're specific and you state your intention of what does a good shot look like and what does a good shot feel like, you're more likely to execute that shot than if you're not as specific. So when you're practicing, you could be on the range, you pick out a pin, 175. I'm going to hit a cut that lands 5 yards left and then releases towards the pin a little bit. And if you state that intention clearly, then you can start to visualize it or feel it, or even use some of your anchoring systems of saying, okay, I've done this shot before, I'm gonna hit this. And the more specific you are with your intention, the better your outcomes are going to be. And once you execute the shot, that means we have an extremely clear intention to know exactly what we want out of this. Now, accepting the shot is just as important. So if we start to think about routine or post-shot routine, we don't want to be attached to poor outcomes. I want to use a poor outcome as a learning opportunity. Instead of just slamming your club in your bag and getting frustrated, watch the shot fully so we can start to say, okay, instead of being reactive, let's learn, let's be curious, let's observe. We can start to reframe this saying, okay, what was good about the shot? What's poor about the shot? What can I remember if this was a good shot? So there's different ways we can learn from it if it was a good shot and a poor shot. Most likely you hit a good shot, you're watching the whole thing, so anchor that. A poor shot, most of the time people become disengaged right away and get frustrated, but I want you to stay engaged with it so we can learn from that moment. So in the post-shot routine, there's 2 questions I always want you to ask yourself. 1, were you committed to the decision that you made? And if you were committed, did you believe you could execute that decision? So, for example, for me, if that pin's back right, my decision is most likely not to go for that back right pin. So I am committed to going for the middle of the green, and I believe I can make that shot happen. Now, if there was an error, the question to ask yourself, was it a mental error or a physical error? And a lot of people don't get to that part of the stage. They'll just kind of walk away and say, okay, I just got to hit the next shot. So if you ask yourself, was it mental or physical, we can start to learn from that. If it was mental, most likely the poor shot happened because we weren't focused. If it was physical, to ask yourself, okay, what was it? Was it because I was not set up the right way? Or could it have been my face was just a little open in the backswing? Most likely it's something very, very minuscule that you're not thinking about. And a tendency that you have on your misses, it might just be an exaggerated tendency. So if you leave the face open, maybe just left it a little bit more open than usual. And we'll get to that in a moment on consistency. But this is what I like to think here is I call it my focused funnel. So we have 4 quadrants here. And think of the funnel is large at the top and it gets smaller as it goes down. We're taking in all this information at the top, like lie, distance, pin location, wind, elevation. You're taking in all this information externally in a very broad sense, and we're becoming aware of what's going on. Then internally, we're analyzing this information. We're making sense of it and how it relates to your game. What are your options? Far too often do I see really good players start to try to pick some options that don't fit their game. For me, again, I'm not very good at hitting a cut, so why would I ever try to go to a back right pin in competition at 175 yards? If it was a wedge shot, I'd feel a little bit more comfortable because I can just hit a straight shot to that pin, but at 175 yards, that back right pin with a bunker and some water might not be the best option. So we want to make sense of this information, how it relates to your game, and figure out what your specific options are. From there, we're going to start to narrow it down internally. What are my possibilities? I could, aim it left of the pin, hit a draw. I could aim it at the middle of the green, hit a straight shot. So what are my options out in front of me, and what is the best option that's going to give me the best result that fits my game? And then again, I want to ask you those questions of what does a good shot look like? What does a good shot feel like? From there, we then get more external again. We narrow down to our performance. We're going to execute it. Even when looking at that golf ball, I want you thinking target. So a drill I have a lot of players do is they'll step behind it. You think of this as a think box. We have a decision line, and then we have our play box. Back in the think box, all I want you to do is just in your mind just go target, target, target. You cross that decision line. You're looking at it, target, target, target. You look at the ball, you're still thinking target. You look at your target, you're thinking target. Before you hit it, in the back of your mind, you're visualizing your target, and that's all you have. If you're looking at the target and your eyes start to wander towards, let's say, the trees, out of bounds, water, you then have to say trees, water, out of bounds, because then you'll start to see how disengaged you're getting with the target and what your mind starts to wander to. So that's where you have to disassociate and then come back to your target and start saying, okay, back to the target, over the ball, back of your mind is the target, and you're going to hit the shot. So it's just making sure that we have an extremely clear intention and know exactly what we want out of our specific shot that we're hitting. So here's a good visual. We're very external, broad. We're really focusing in. We can see everything around us here. The pin is going to be back right behind those bunkers. We're looking, say, okay, how much room do I have left? How much room do I have short? So we're at the top of our funnel. We're gathering our information. Where's the pin position? That's kind of middle, front, right. Where are the hazards? Well, we got some bunkers to the right, got some bunkers to the left, got plenty of room behind that pin. Then we're trying to figure out what is our carry, what is our total yardage. Then from here, we're going to focus in a little closer, making sense of the information. Okay, we have our pin here to the right, and there's a ton of room to the left of that pin. Now, as we're making sense of the information, we have to see how it relates to your game. So as you can see up here, I have when people are targeting, well, this specific player, when they target the pin versus their optimal target. So when this person was targeting the pin, yeah, we got a lot of shots on the green, but now we have 1, 2, 3 shots kind of on the lip of the bunker, in the bunker, and then one looks like it might be out of play here to the right. If we start to pick our optimal target, we start to shift everything where we actually have more options that are easy little chip shots, more options on the green. So as you start to know your tendencies, we got to start to play to our tendencies. And again, what's the best shot for you? How can we make the best decision for your game? And then as we're narrowing even further, now we're saying, okay, this is where I'm aiming. I'm aiming at this bush left of the pin. Now, what does my good shot feel like? What does my good shot look like? Maybe we have an anchoring technique of a shot we've hit in the past, and we're really having a clear intention and focus and plan for our shot here. So we're going from broad, narrowing in, and then extremely narrow as we're walking into our shot here. Now, this is, I think, going to be some of the most important stuff for all of you. We have a lot of distractions going on around us. We have score, and then for you, team score. We have thoughts, playing partners, pace of play, noise, weather, importance of a shot. You know, the nice thing is you're all walking, so you're not stuck in a golf cart with players during college tournaments. But imagine being stuck in a golf cart with a player who just won't stop talking, and they're talking about their game. At least you have some space to kind of be in your own world a little bit. So how do we refocus? Well, there's 4 things here I like to use. We have awareness, speed. There's a few tools we can utilize, and then having complete concentration. So awareness. Am I not focused on the right things? Well, if I'm not focused on the right things, let's restate our intention and be very specific what our intention is for that shot. Speed. How fast can I refocus back to our narrow focus here, right? What does a good shot feel like? What does a good shot look like? Use questions for yourself to re-engage in the moment. Tools are different ways we can re-engage ourselves in the moment. For example, we use this thing called soft focus. So imagine you're driving in one of those tunnels in Pittsburgh. You can see it's wide and it just narrows, right? So if my target's out here, as I have this soft focus, my eyes get heavy, things get blurred around me, and you can start to see this tunnel, and at the end of that tunnel is your target. So one way to really engage yourself is to take a deep breath, hold. The most important thing is just the release. Then we can go into the soft focus, call it tunnel vision, and we can start to visualize our shot. Then having that complete concentration. I'm only paying attention to one thing at this moment. My one thing right now is the target. So let me ask you the question. I did mention this earlier. Do you feel that any of your mindsets change based on the labeling of what a putt is for or what a shot is for? So for example, birdie versus a par versus a bogey. Do you feel your mindsets change?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
And I think we need to change that mindset. I think we need to get out of saying this is for par, this is for bogey. Well, the crazy thing is I've had some players have 7-foot putts for birdie that are a little bit disengaged with it. And then they have that bogey putt that they're extremely engaged with because they're like, well, if I miss this, I make double. So I want that same intensity as a bogey putt as we do a birdie putt. And the reason being is like, oh, I got birdie. It'd be awesome to make a birdie, but it's not like I'm losing strokes against the field. But technically, you are losing strokes against the field because that'd be helping yourself. That'd be helping the team. So I just want you to think of all these shots as just strokes. That's all it is. Like I mentioned before, the best players in the world don't want to give up strokes to the field. They don't label what the putt is for, what the shot is for. If we start labeling it, now you're applying pressure to yourself and we become distracted. So think of every shot as just a normal shot and it's just gaining or losing strokes. So there's a lot of different ways we can train focus and a lot of different ways we can get back in the moment. But the most important thing is finding what is most valuable for you and what gets you refocused the quickest. You think of where your eyes start to wander is where your brain starts to attach to. So if I'm on the hole that I showed earlier where we have the water to the left, if all we're thinking about is that water, your brain gets attached to that. So just going back on a lot of these winners we've seen recently, a lot of them have talked about meditation. And it's not just in golf. I saw one of the girls in the University of Kentucky basketball on ESPN talking about meditation the other day and the breathing that she does. And then during the Super Bowl when the Eagles were playing, on the sideline, the defense was talking about doing breathing during the Super Bowl. They were so amped up and excited. They're like, we got to calm down because when we get our excitement too high, things could go sideways. We won't have a clear image of what we want. And they were doing specific team breathing on the sideline to get back into a flow state. Then ask yourself questions out there. Is this the right shot for me? Does this fit my game? Then visualization. There's a lot of different ways we can do it. Like I mentioned earlier, having that tunnel vision, seeing the shot shape. Maybe you're seeing it from third person point of view, kind of having an out of body experience. And then we have flow triggers, which again, going back to different styles of breathing or to that you're on the team and playing with the team. So I always like to bring this portion up about breathing and its importance in the process. You know, the beauty of the pre-shot routine is that it's all under your control. There are a lot of uncontrollables in golf. You can't control if someone else is going to shoot 10 under par that day. You can only control what you're doing. And breathing is one of those things. Remember, your brain attaches to many things that are out of your control because it wants to try to control them, which makes us more stressed and more tense. So breathing isn't just about staying alive, it's about thriving. It's a key to managing your stress response, resetting your focus, and performing at your best when it matters most. So there's some keys to breathing, like your posture. So if we're hunched over like this on the course walking, our breathing is just going to get tense and tight because your diaphragm can't expand. So if we're able to have a tall posture, we're going to have better muscle control, and then we can allow ourselves to have better rhythm. So if we have this rapid, shallow rhythm, it's going to bring that fight or flight scenario, signaling danger to the body, keeping you tense. So if we're able to control the respiratory rate, it's going to control your heart rate. It's going to give you more balance and more focus. So what I'd give all of you when you go home, go look up some different breathing techniques. There's something called dolphin breathing, which I've been experimenting with lately. And what you do is you breathe in, you hold for 30 seconds, and then you breathe normal, slow breaths for 10 seconds. And you breathe in and hold for 35 seconds. And what this does, it helps lower your heart rate and kind of get you back into a better flow state. There's a new one I tried the other day called ocean breathing, which was weird, but it worked. It really calmed because my heart rate was a little high. I'm like, I got to lower this a little bit. If you have a Whoop, if you have an iWatch and you can track your heart rate as you're doing this, it's pretty neat. I was doing the dolphin breathing one night and I thought I was going to go into a coma. Not funny, but at the same time, it was kind of funny. My heart rate started about 100 and I got it down to 43 beats per minute. And you definitely feel almost like an out-of-body experience when your heart rate gets that low, but it also allows you to be in more of a calm state, be relaxed, almost like that walking in a cloud feeling, to where you can walk into a shot and not have those nerves. So I just want to go through this quickly. Some information on consistency. Are the best players in the world consistent? The answer is yes and no. They just know their tendencies. They know their ball flight. So this right here is a 60-yard wide pattern from left to right. This is from one of the top ranked amateurs in the world that Penn State did a research on. They were nice enough to provide me this information during the research process. We can see that center line here, that's our center of the fairway, and that is the 60-yard wide spread. Now, PGA Tour players average from 65 to 75 yards on their dispersion with the driver between good shots and poor shots. So not as consistent as we may think. Now, everyone is so caught up sometimes on technique. Now, the technique does not have to be perfect to play phenomenal golf, but below on the right, you can see there's a 5-degree difference between the flexion in the wrist. And I can tell you one thing, looking at that with the naked eye, you really can't tell much of a difference, right? So consistency from shot to shot, a lot of players are off by 5 degrees in their movement. You think of a club path of 5-degree change, that's a lot of change in the shot shape. But if we're able to manage little things like what our mind is doing, it's going to make a massive difference. So here's scoring consistency. And I've found this to be true with every player I've worked with. And they always come to me and say, Mike, I shot 85 today. I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, your average score is usually 76, so 85 is expected, but also possibly a 70. And this is all done by standard deviation, which is why it's 62.8 for Justin Rose. But the best differential in history was, Justin Thomas. The best differential in history was Justin Rose at 11 strokes. And last year, Scotty Scheffler tied that on the number at 11 strokes. But typically, we do see a 15-stroke difference. And JT here is roughly 13.2 strokes. So if we start having understanding that bad rounds happen, yes, they do. It happens to the best players in the world. We see players like Spieth and Justin Thomas right now are struggling. This was from years ago for these statistics, but right now we see these guys, they might shoot 67, all of a sudden they shoot 76, 78. So again, we have to have an understanding there is going to be this fluctuation. We can't be perfect every day, but if we shoot an 80 in round 1, there's no reason why you can't walk out there and shoot 67 in round 2. So based on the research, outcome consistency does not come from technique consistency. Your technique is already consistent. You're great players. You're on the team. But we have to develop this better mental consistency to create better outcome consistency. So going back to stating our intentions, understanding our tendencies, knowing what we can do with our game, we got to make the best decisions for us so we have better on-course strategy and have a better path to having a lower scoring average. And on average, we see through FlowCode 2 to 3 strokes of better scores, 2 to 3 strokes better scores through mental game training.